Hello, Wellness Warriors. Today, we're talking about fasting. And the reason that we're even talking about fasting is because I'm going to be doing my mid-year fast. And there's two really important ideas that I want to talk about and give you my position on them. So the first one is this idea that when we fast, it's dangerous because we're going to lose muscle mass or starve ourselves. The second idea I want to talk about is the idea that we fast for weight loss. So that's the good reason to be doing it. I disagree with both these statements, and I'm going to tell you why I disagree. And when you fast for the wrong reasons, you get people like this guy that's interviewing Dr. Fung, honing in on the one thing he said, and then saying it in a way that is, first of all, misleading. So yes, when you fast, you're gonna lose weight for sure, because obviously, if I'm not eating, my body is going to have to use my energy stores, and I'm going to lose weight. This is obvious. I mean, I think the first time I found a video from Dr. Fung back more than 6 years ago, he said that. So it's a clear slam dunk. Don't eat, lose weight. Okay. But that's not the best reason to fast. If you look at this thumbnail, I took a screenshot off my phone. It's Dr. Fung's face, and it says, "Melt your fat today." Now, I don't know if he actually said that in the video because I haven't watched this one yet. I just grabbed the screenshot because I thought it was so crazy, because I know that Dr. Fung believes that fasting is so much more important to health than just weight loss. But the problem is this. We want weight loss. Because we want weight loss, we end up only focusing on things in our life that are going to give us weight loss. So we want diets that are going to give us weight loss, and not just weight loss, fast weight loss. And we want it to happen almost effortlessly, which is what this thumbnail suggests. Melt your fat today, as if it's this effortless thing that's going to happen, and it's going to be quick. And so these words, I want to just talk about these words because they drive me crazy. When we are saying things like you're going to melt away fat, your body doesn't melt fat. Melting fat is something you do in a frying pan. And when you melt fat, it's still there. It's just in a liquid form at that point. What your body does is it uses fat, which is stored energy, to fuel you for however long. It could be for the whole day, if you're in my story. It could be for a period of time, if you're in a typical person's calorie story. Then it's just for a period of time, and most of your day will be fueled by sugar. We all use sugar and fat every day. So let's be clear about that too. I think this is another misconception and problem that makes us afraid of fasting. We don't understand that our body uses both fat and sugar daily. So we don't melt it, we use it, and using it is a good thing. The more of it that we can use, the more weight we will lose. So that's probably why this thumbnail was made this way, because they're trying to hone in on the you're going to lose weight part of the story. But because they're so focused on weight loss, we end up in a situation where the weight loss industry will use similar wording tactics, but in a different way. So they'll say things like, fat clogs arteries. Again, not reality in the body. Fat will clog pipes. So if you pour fat down a drain, and I've learned that lesson the hard way, if you pour fat down a drain, it will clog your pipes up. And then in order to unclog it, depending on how far down the road that is, that's a lot of difficulty because hot water doesn't stay hot very long in pipes, especially in a Canadian winter. So it could take a lot to try to degrease your pipes once you've gunked them up with fat. And the weight loss industry talks about it like this. They're going to clog your arteries, that you're going to eat fat, it's going to clog your pores. It's going to clog all kinds of things so that you need to be on this low fat regimen. And these things stop us from truly understanding how the body functions and therefore making mistakes in the foods that we actually eat on a daily basis. And calories is another one of these terminologies, these words that we use that confuses us, because we talk about how many calories we eat per day. And the part that's frustrating to me is that calories is something so it's a terminology that was created in a lab to be able to account for, measure, look at how much of something, so how much energy is in a kind of food. But this calorie idea doesn't actually translate well for people, right? And actually, what I want to do is I want to show you this video that explains why calories don't translate well for people.
It all depends on hormones because our whole body runs on hormones. Our body has no calorie receptors, right? There's no cell receptor that says, oh, here's a calorie. This is what I'm going to do. Our body runs on hormones. Those are instructions as to what to do, how much to pump blood, how much body heat to generate. Everything in our body is run on hormones, not calories. So ignoring the hormonal side of things is not a great idea.
So obviously, if we look at that, what we realize is that our body doesn't actually use calories as an idea, right? That's not the way that our bodies function. Our body wants to use food for what it's supposed to be. It understands hormones, and then hormones tell it, how our body reacts to food tells the hormones what to do. And what's really interesting is that if you eat sugar, and let's say we were to say from 0 to 10, 0 being no bodily reaction, 10 being the maximum bodily reaction. When we eat sugar, our body has a 10 reaction. So insulin has a 10 reaction. And that's the hormone I want to make sure that we're talking about right now. Insulin has a 10 reaction. But when we eat things like protein, insulin has maybe a 6 reaction. But if we eat just fat, fat alone, has a 3 reaction. Now, those are my numbers. I'm saying ish, right? Because I'm saying it's relative, is what I'm talking about. Our body has the lowest possible reaction to fat, a medium reaction to protein, and a very high reaction to sugar. Now, that insulin reaction actually tells our body to store energy as fat. And you'll notice I said energy. I didn't say calories, and I didn't say sugar or fat. I said energy. And the reason that I say energy is because when we eat highly carby foods alongside protein and fat, our body has a tendency to store all of it, right? It's going to put all of it away because it's coming in together with this high sugar content. And so we get much less of our ability to use the protein and fat that we're bringing in to fuel ourselves, which is why we turn around and we're hungry not very long afterwards. And I think these are things that if we don't understand them, we make mistakes that we clearly could be avoiding just by knowing to eat better quality food. So things like bread, grains, starchy vegetables, we put them on our plate because we don't understand that not all high in sugar foods don't taste sweet, right? There's a lot of high sugar foods that don't taste sweet. And so therefore, if I don't know that I could be eating some pasta, which doesn't taste sweet to the average person, and yet it's high in sugar, I don't understand why my doctor is telling me to take my sugar down and not believing me when I've not eaten a cookie in days. I haven't had a chocolate bar in days. My doctor, I go back to my appointment and my doctor's saying, oh, you didn't do what I asked you to do because look at your numbers, right? And I'm confused and I'm being accused of eating stuff that I can't control. And by the way, calories as an idea, like our body isn't focused on calories, as Dr. Fung just said. And so because of that, we can't control what our body does with this incoming calorie count that, that's on the packaging, because our body doesn't understand or know what to do with calories. So our body can't even fight against this calorie thing that we're saying, oh, but it's higher in calories, body, do something different with it. Our body can't do that. But what it can do is it can separate it into carbohydrates, sugar, and fats, so lipids, and it can separate these two ideas and say, oh, when we get mostly carbohydrates, I need to put it away in storage, and whatever comes along in that meal, I can put that away. When we get mostly protein and fat, I have a better opportunity here to use that to build the body, heal the body, and do things positive for the body. So if we don't know that there's sugar in these foods, then what ends up happening is that we don't even know that we're eating something that's raising our insulin levels and causing health problems. And so because we don't know that these simple things, and I mean, there's more things I can put on here, because when I do eat a cookie, I do eat, which we know there's sugar in that, but we don't even know how much, because we're looking at a cookie and we're saying, oh, maybe it's just the chocolate chips in the cookie, or there's the frosting in the cookie, but the rest of it is fine, right? It isn't. So we underestimate how much sugar is in a lot of the things that we're eating. And for that reason, we end up in really, really bad situations, because we have insulin spikes, which of course, if our insulin is spiking and we're putting more sugar, fat, and protein into fat storage, that also means that we're gaining weight. But our insulin is also spiking because when we eat a lot of sugar, that sugar coming in is in our blood for a moment before our insulin will go in and clear it up. So we need to be careful about this idea of, because insulin cleans up that sugar and puts it in fat storage or other parts of the body, by the way, because insulin does that, then we don't have to worry, because it still was in our blood for a time, which means while it was in our blood, it was doing something. And I think this is why we have such a hard time understanding that illness comes on so slowly. We think it came in, cleaned up, and so there's no problem. But I want you to think about your home. Even if you're the kind of person that tidies up and cleans up every day, washes down the table every day, like you do all the good practices, after 10 years, your table does not look as beautiful and new as it looked on day one. Even if every single day of that 10 years, every meal you wiped it down, every time you cleaned up, if you did all the right things, you're still going to have a table that 10 years later, you can see the wear and tear on it, right? Now, if you happen to be in a story where I would compare that to eating keto your entire life, versus if you were in a story where you never had keto, you did standard diet. So you're going to look at that table and there's going to be scratches, there's going to be ring stains from putting hot things on it, putting cold things on it, leaving wet stuff on it, because you would have been letting all that sugar in and it's been sitting around and laying around and just ruining and scuffing. So in both stories, you end up with damage. But it's just like how much? You can have the minimum amount that where you can look at this and say, this table is still in good condition, even though I want a new one. And I'm going to sell this and I'm going to get back, maybe a third of what I paid for the table because I kept it in such pristine condition. And somebody who never saw the table on day one is going to come around and say, wow, you're selling this? This looks amazing. And, right? Because it looks that good. Versus a table that's so beat up that you can't even get the garbage people to take it away. And we don't understand that it's because no matter how much you clean something, the dirt still got on it, right? So no matter how quickly my body can come in and clean up, that toxin, sugar, was still in my blood for a period. That toxin, alcohol, was still in me for a period, right? That toxin, any other substance you might be taking, was still in you for a period. And so therefore, it caused damage. Now, I mentioned this a few seconds ago, but I'm going to go back to it. If you don't have weight gain, wellness warrior, what I want you to think about is that if you don't have weight gain, there's another problem that's going to happen, because if your body isn't putting the fat in fat storage, then very likely what's happening is that your body is putting the fat in places that's worse than fat storage. So for me, I was one of those unlucky people that I was still thin. Like, up until I had my daughter, I was still thin. Thin. I was normal weighted. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't thin. I was normal weighted. But where was the sugar going? The sugar was going to my joints. And I had all kinds of inflammation and pain. Started in my knees, then in my elbow. And I gave all kinds of reasons, right? Oh, I do sports. I did barely any sports. Oh, I played badminton. Okay, that I did do regularly. Eventually later in life, but it was well later in life. So could it explain my knee problems? No, it could not. And then it was my back. Oh, because I ski. I skied like starting when I was 25 or 6, first of all, and my knee pain started when I was like 22, and I didn't even ski that much. So maybe like once every other, I would say 5 times a year, maybe I would ski. So they were not enough to explain the pain that I was living. And a lot of people end up with insulin resistance, end up with high blood pressure, end up with like heart disease, PCOS, like all these things without, even diabetes, without the weight gain. And for a lot of people, the weight gain comes later, and they have all these skin problems, so like eczema, all kinds. The weight gain comes later because not everybody's body chooses fat storage as the main place that it's putting the sugar. So you will have some because it's normal, but we need to be careful that we understand that your body can do other things with the sugar, and those other things don't feel great. So if I don't understand why sugar is bad for me, like beyond tooth decay, I'm not looking for it in my food, and therefore I'm not going to know that it's in the things that don't taste sweet in my diet. And if I don't understand that, then I'm not actually even trying to solve this problem, which is a problem, right? Now, another reason that we think about not fasting, or the fasting are said to put our body in starvation mode. So we equate not eating with starvation. And I hear people say this all the time, oh my gosh, I'm starving after missing like one meal. If you miss one meal, you're not starving, right? You're hungry, but you're not starving. And what's interesting to me about being hungry, and Dr. Fung talks about this too, is the fact that when you're hungry, you'll get hungry and it will feel quite intense. But if you don't eat, it goes away. And that's everybody. I experienced this when I was doing standard diet a lot, because when I was working, there were long periods of time where I would be going to see clients and I couldn't get like time for lunch because I was either at their homes, or so I was in scenarios where I couldn't eat lunch, like back before I became my profession. So another job that I had. And because I couldn't eat when I wanted to eat, sometimes lunchtime would come and go and I wouldn't have eaten. But what was interesting, now that I look back on it, is that it wasn't like I would walk out the door and be like, oh gosh, I'm so starving, I have to run and go eat. Oftentimes, I had another appointment because I went through lunch on that one and I have the next one that was supposed to happen after lunch, and I would just go to the next appointment. And so here's what's interesting to me. Sometimes, at the end of the day, I would not have eaten anything. And what would happen to me? well, I'd have a headache. I'm still not sure why we get the headache when we don't eat, but I would have a headache. But other than the headache, sometimes, and I didn't always get the headache, by the way, I'd be fine. And then I would just have supper, and the headache would go away because the headache was there because I was hungry. We're not starving because we miss a meal. And by the way, most people who are starving actually have access to some food. It's just not enough, right? So that's because when we are truly starved, we eat whatever the heck is available. What does that mean? If for some reason I was locked away somewhere and I couldn't get the food I wanted, I would eat whatever wouldn't poison me. That means at some point, if I saw a bug crawling, I'm going to eat it. If I saw some kind of leaf, I'm going to eat it. I'm going to eat whatever is there to keep me going until I can get back to food. And this is just because humans are made to survive. We will go a little while without conventional food, but we're not going to go forever. We will eat something. It's probably how we figured out that all these plants were edible, because we didn't have an animal that we had caught, so we had to eat something else. Now, in our modern society, that typically doesn't happen. That's not the reason that the average person is going to be in a starvation scenario. As a matter of fact, in our modern society, most people do not end up in a starvation scenario. It doesn't happen. But there are a few conditions that could lead to starvation. I'm just going to name a few because I think they're interesting to think about. First of all, we have disordered eating, which everyone talks about online, so I'm not going to go too far into that. But the reality is food is available, and the person is purposefully either not engaging the food or engaging the food and then voiding the food. So that's not a scenario where you didn't have food that you could have kept. Another scenario that might cause you to experience starvation would be if you have a severe mental health issue like depression, or a physical health issue that causes like lack of appetite or like an inability to retain food. So basically you eat it and then you can't keep it. And those scenarios, again, are mental health, and physical health issues. The person isn't choosing this, but the food is available. There is food to eat. So I think that we need to be careful when we're talking about what kind of things cause us to be in starvation mode, because there is such a thing. Whoops. And I think the other thing that I want to point out is that the other thing that can happen is we can be diabetic. So if I'm diabetic, yes, I'm going to have, I'm not going to be able, if I'm type 1 diabetic, I'm not going to be able to hold on to the energy from the food that I'm eating. And so therefore, type 1 diabetics can also accidentally be starving until they figure out that they're type 1 diabetics. The problem that I have, and I want to point this out to everybody, is that we don't even realize how ignoring insulin and not understanding how sugar impacts insulin then causes us to be in a scenario with food that we end up with type 2 diabetes. And so we're not in starvation mode, that's for sure, in a type 2 diabetes situation. But I want us to understand something. It used to be the case that unless you had type 1 diabetes, it was very rare to see a young child with diabetes. But now, we're seeing more and more little kids and young people with type 2 diabetes, which used to be thought about as a disease of older people. And the question is why? Again, it goes back to even those parents who are trying really hard to be good with their kids, who are not constantly giving them junk, so candies, cookies, ice cream, soda, are still feeding them healthy grains, healthy vegetables and fruits, all the fruits that they want. And therefore they are overeating sugar from such a young age that they become diabetic at a much younger age. Some children, so still in the children phase, you're not an 18-year or 20-year-old, depending where you live, yet, and you are diabetic. So we need to be careful that we understand what exactly it is that causes weight gain. Weight gain and insulin rises and where the sugar is coming from, right? And understanding that it isn't only a story of weight gain too. So that's the other important piece of this puzzle, right? We can do so much more if we understand what it is that our body's trying to accomplish. Now, what are the symptoms of starvation? Just for us to be aware. There's some mental symptoms of starvation. So if you're actually starving, what's going to happen at the beginning is, the first little bit is going to be irritability and moodiness. You're going to be extremely fatigued. And you're going to have the inability to concentrate. So I feel like irritability, we can see very early in the process. Like as soon as you're not getting energy that you need out of food, that can happen within hours, that we become irritable. But what takes longer is that moody, like vacillating mood and the fatigue that will set in. So a person who is starved won't have energy, where a person who is hungry will have energy. Poor concentration will come in, and the preoccupation with food. Those are the mental health things that will happen, and the behavioral things that will happen. Then your immune system will start to take a hit at some point when you are starved. So when you haven't eaten long enough, catching a cold or even like having a cut or anything that your body would need to solve becomes extremely problematic. And then as your body eventually starts to use too much energy from its reserves, you start to have a bunch of medical issues. So it's not just the weight loss, it's not just the emaciation, it's that you actually lose not just muscle, but important internal tissues start to get kind of used because your body needs to try to keep itself going. And so it's going to protect your central core, but then your externals start to have problems. You're going to lose hair and all kinds of like negative things are going to happen. An average healthy person won't starve unless an average healthy person, it will take them like 2 months before they would actually starve with no food. But that's like no food. Like you're actually getting nothing, nada. Most people last longer than that because they do have access to food.
People say, well, if you're going to fast, you're going to, go into starvation mode, your metabolic rate's going to go down. Well, this is what actually happens. You take people and you measure them and you fast them for 4 days. So after 4 days of not eating, what you see is that they're burning about 10% more calories than they did at day 0. Your body's not shutting down. It's ramping itself back up. And again, why? It's basic physiology. Your sympathetic tone has gone up, your noradrenaline has gone up. And that's why. Interestingly enough, growth hormone has also gone up, which is very interesting because you'd think, why is growth hormone going up? Well, again, when you start to eat, you want that growth hormone up so that you are able to maintain your lean mass.
So before we talked about muscle wasting, if you're getting value from this video, please hit that like button. It actually does help for more people to see the video. And it makes me feel good because I can look and see how many people are enjoying what I was saying. So we worry about our body using muscle instead of fat storage. And I feel like that's an unfortunate thing that we do because what ends up happening is that we're worrying about it and it's somewhat legitimate because there's a period of time when we do actually use muscle. And so that transition between using muscle and using sugar is in between. So we use sugar for fuel at the very beginning when we don't have food. Then we'll make a little bit of sugar ourselves, gluconeogenesis, right? So we use some muscle, or not muscle, I should say protein, to make sugar. And then we will go into fat stores. And this is if we don't have food. I feel like we get confused a little bit about like how much energy our body will use when we don't have food from protein sources. And according to Dr. Fung, it's not that much. So we're going to mostly use the 24, the amount of sugar that we have there that's available for us to use. And then we're going to go over and we're going to use a little bit of protein to try to fill a gap. And then we're going to go to long-term storage, so fat stores. But what we forget is that we have a lot of damaged cells in our body. And so those damaged cells, our body will use those for that gluconeogenesis, right? Because that whole idea of autophagy, right? Like we recycle our body to keep us healthy. And that's a great thing that we do. And so therefore, by recycling our body to keep us healthy, we end up in a great scenario where if we don't have food coming in for whatever reason, we can still help ourselves to build. So you're looking at these images here. What we have is that a person who's in really good shape, they're afraid that if I were to fast, well, my muscle's going to get taken first, right? Like I should be conscious of that and scared of that. Whereas people that have more weight on them, they're less worried about that because, well, I have fat stores on me. It turns out that it's healthy for people who are in that are at goal weight, so like myself, to fast. And I think the thing that's kind of confusing to us is that we really do believe that the only protein that our body can take is this muscle, not realizing how much skin and cells that are, so like if you think about it, if when you lose weight, you have all this excess loose skin, wouldn't it be great if our body could like jump in and take a bunch of that and use it to fuel itself and build itself in whatever? But the truth of the matter is anybody who's lost a large amount of weight and didn't do the surgery to get rid of that excess skin can attest to how long it takes the body to actually reincorporate the skin back into you. Even if you are fasting, it still takes a really long time. It happens and it will eventually happen, but this I think is part of where if we don't understand how the body functions, then we're not really understanding what it's trying to accomplish.
As you fast, you will start with the glycogen. So glycogen is change of glucose. So as you eat, you fill up your glycogen stores. If you don't eat for 24 hours, for the most part, you have enough glucose in your liver. You simply break all the glycogen back into little chains of sugar and send it back out. So you're not burning muscle, and everybody kind of knows that. At the other extreme, if you're fasting for more than about 36 hours or so, you're burning mostly fat. But there's a window in there where you do this so-called gluconeogenesis, where you use protein to kind of produce glucose. And that's where people say, wow, you're going to lose, and I've heard these numbers, oh, you're going to lose a 1/4 pound of muscle for every day you fast. And the other thing is that not all that protein is good, right? Everybody has this inherent bias that all that protein is really good stuff, right? Well, there's all kinds of situations where that protein is not good stuff, right? So for example, in Alzheimer's disease, there's all this abnormal protein gumming up your brain, and that's why you can't think, right? Well, what if you had a process which could actually break down this junky old protein and get rid of it? Well, that's what fasting does. Because again, your body's like, oh, I'm not getting any nutrients here. Let me look for any of the junky old proteins that I don't need. Let me break them down. And that process is called autophagy.
So there are much better reasons to fast that I want to talk about. And I think that the most obvious is to regulate your insulin and your other hormones. And that's this thing that we do that's called like homeostasis. Our body does this with everything. So our energy, our hormones, like our body is always trying to keep things stable, our temperature, because if it keeps everything stable, that means that we are the most likely to be able to keep moving forward in a healthy way because we can repeat what we're doing. And also the fact that these numbers that our body keeps us at are supposed to be the healthy numbers. So when we regulate insulin and other hormones, what we're actually allowing our body to do is have all those chemical processes that it prioritizes to run at their optimal level so that we can build and repair our body in the best possible way And by doing that, when we build and repair our body in the best possible way, that means that we live longer because our body is built better and we are stronger. And I think that that's the most important thing that we get out of fasting. But there's a few other things that we're going to get. For example, we're also going to have an improved relationship with food. So if I know that I'm not going to pass away if I don't eat today, then it's less stressful for me, first of all, that I'm not able to get to my food exactly when I would have wanted to get to it. But then when I'm hungry, if I've actually lived this where I was supposed to eat, I didn't eat, and the evening came and I was fine, but not to mention the next day I was fine, and the day after that I was fine, and I didn't live any negative repercussion for having missed that meal. If I live a day without eating, sometimes we have to do that because we have medical tests and we need to get blood drawn or whatever, so we can't eat. We have to give some kind of sample to the doctor. When I do that at 24 hours and I don't eat anything, then what I'm teaching myself is that I can actually not eat for 24 hours, and then the next day I'm fine, and the day after that I'm fine, and the day after that I'm fine. So what we start to understand is that, okay, I'll be okay. Now, why that's super important, Wellness Warrior, is that if I know that I'm going to be okay if I don't eat, then that means I will be okay if I don't eat on time. That means that my kids will be okay if they don't eat on time. And why that's important is because if I'm late for lunch or supper, there's this belief that I should grab a snack so that it can hold me till supper. And I want us all to stop doing that. I want us to put that down. That is something that's hurting your health. Truthfully, if you don't eat, your body will go in, take some energy, and then you'll move forward. And whenever the food is ready, you'll be able to eat it. Even if I stay a little hungry while I'm cooking because probably I'm smelling the food and I'm in there with the food, I still know that I can do it because I've done it before. I've gone periods of time without eating. So there's no reason for me to start eating, especially considering that the thing that I will have to choose will be the carb, because you can't eat raw meat or meat that's meant to be cooked anyways. There's some raw ones you can eat, but you can't eat meat that's meant to be cooked before it's ready. You can make yourself ill. And so now I might be in the scenario where the only thing that I can pop in my mouth is the carbs. And what have I just done? I've started my insulin rising already, and I'm not even in the meal. What's going to happen as I get into the meal? We need to be careful and also understand that when insulin rises, it takes time to come back down. It's not just up, down, like that. No, it goes up and it tapers. And then when you eat something else, it goes up and it tapers. And so by the end of your day, if you've been snacking, your insulin levels can be high. And when insulin is high, our body stores whatever energy comes in as fat or in other places that could be equally damaging. So if I know that that feeling is going to go away, I'm much more likely to hold out for the proper meal that I'm about to make. And I want us to also understand that anything that's unhealthy that I could eat, so if I'm at work and all that's available to me are donuts that somebody brought in for a treat and I forgot my lunch at home, it's actually better for me to skip this meal than to eat those donuts, right? Because first of all, fast storage. Second of all, high insulin. Third of all, what else might it do in my body? But most importantly, I don't need it. I've actually figured out that I could go and not eat this meal and be fine. So why would I then eat something just for the sake? But we do it because we are afraid that if I don't eat, I'm going to starve, right? If I don't eat, like my muscles are going to, it's not reality. Now, autophagy and internal cleanup is the next great reason for you to fast. Because when we don't eat, all that cleanup that's happening also means that damaged cells, and damage can look like anything, right? It could be fixing a bruise that I have on my leg because I bumped into my stupid couch or something, my table. But it could be something as important as fixing problems that are happening with my heart that I'm not aware of. It could be fixing my brain because I'm not aware. The importance of autophagy, the importance of cell cleanup is huge. And we don't think about it because we can't see it happening. But I want you to think about something, Wellness Warrior. Have you ever had a cut? And okay, while it's hurting, you're paying attention to it, but then you just don't pay attention to it anymore. And maybe a few weeks later, you look where the cut was, and your body looks pristine again. Everything is just stitched back up and whatever. Now, I'm going to offer you to think about this. What I've noticed is that how long it takes my cuts to heal up and look like, oh, I can't even tell that that problem was there, got shorter as I got healthier. And the question would be why? My assumption, my interpretation of this is that because my body is no longer focused on saving me from sugar every day, and because I eat one meal a day, I have a lot more time for my body to be in the phase where it's actually cleaning up, right? I have 23 hours where I'm not eating anything. And in the next, hopefully 7 days, I'm trying to make it the 7 days, I will possibly not eat anything for that whole 7 days. Now, my track record is only 5 days, but I really want to make it this time. And part of the reason that I'm even talking about this today is because I'm getting on this journey right now, and these are things that we don't think about, right? But it's amazing what our body can do when we give it the opportunity to do what it can. We are so much more complex than what any scientist has figured out. And I've heard some estimates that say we only know maybe even, some say 10%, but there's some scientists that are saying we don't even know 1% of what our body is truly capable of and all the processes that are happening. And their belief is that is so way beyond our comprehension. It's just crazy. I don't know what number is right. What I do know is that for me, the not doctor, I see my body doing things and I'm impressed because small changes that I make in my food lead to huge changes in my health. And Dr. Fung talks about that all the time, that there's huge improvements that can come from small weight loss, which brings me to my next point, is that the best reason to do fasting isn't because of weight loss in terms of I'm doing it to lose weight, but it is the fact that your body is going to use those fat stores. And that's an amazing reason to do fasting. But then you ask yourself, why would somebody in my position still fast? I'm at goal. Wouldn't that put me in a bad situation? Wouldn't that? And the reality is no. My body is too smart to make fasting a problem. So, first of all, I did check my weight this morning so that I will know where I started, because I want to talk about what the outcome of this was. But I'm fully confident that what's going to happen is that, sure, I'm going to lose a little bit of weight, but nothing that I can't put back with probably 2 or 3 meals, because my body isn't going to be focused on getting energy out of storage for the sake of getting energy out of storage, because that's not what my body needs. It will take some energy out of storage to do the repairs that it needs to do. Interestingly, when your body's doing repairs, a lot of the time you end up with a little bit of inflammation, so my weight's probably not going to fluctuate all that much. Now, the other thing that I want us to think about is that if you do have weight to lose, and your body is going in and it's pulling out fat from storage to use as energy, the other thing that happens is that your body will pull out the toxins that were stored in the fat. And of course, then your body will eliminate them through bowel movements and urine and other processes that it does to eliminate. And why that's important for us to understand is that, well, although those toxins are held in fat storage, it doesn't mean that they don't have an impact on us, right? Because our fat storage is active. It produces your hormones, some of your hormones, so like your feel-good hormones happen in there. And so there's a lot of things that are happening in fat storage. It talks to the body about hunger, and it does a lot of stuff. And if there's negatives in there that is causing your health to be in a bad place, it's better to get the fat out of storage and eliminate those toxins out of the body. Can I point out, again, some of your fat storage is perfectly fine and healthy because it's supposed to be there. But you're going to have those things that you ate that had chemicals in them. You're going to have those times that maybe you were caught in a part of town that had a lot of smog, or maybe you live near or work near a smoker, or there's all kinds of reasons why you might have toxins in your body that aren't strictly to do with eating bad food. But then there's a lot of reasons that you have toxins in your body that have to do with eating bad foods. So it gives your body the absolute ability to help with that. Now, another thing that happens if I lose body fat, my body's lighter. And so I do feel like that's another great thing, right? Like we want to allow our body to not have to carry around more energy than it needs to so that we can do the things in life that we want to do. Now, Wellness Warrior, I want to put a question to you, or like I want to put it to you in this interesting way. It's like, I think we would all agree that working out is important for us to do. But if I'm working out to be stronger, right? I'm not working out necessarily to hit a specific number on a scale, right? I'm talking about muscle building right now. I'm not trying to hit a number on it. I'm trying to be stronger. And because I'm trying to be stronger, one of the things that I'm not going to do is I'm not going to walk around with weights in my arms all the time. Because I understand that my body needs to rest in between workouts. Now, one of the things I see and why I try to encourage people not to use fasting as a weight loss something and more as a health something, and then we lose weight by being careful of the foods we're actually eating, is because when we understand that we're carrying these weights around for short periods of time to help us to get strong, we don't end up carrying the weights around 20 hours a day, right? You don't walk around with heavy 100 pounds weights on you 20 hours a day. You do it short repetitions for a period of time, and then you rest. I feel like we don't allow ourselves to look at fasting that way. We want to fast in huge chunks to force our body to lose weight. But then what we don't understand is that by doing that, I haven't really changed my relationship with food because I'm not letting myself understand everything about fasting. I want us to understand everything about fasting because if I understand that the goal is lower insulin, if I understand that the foods I eat impact my insulin, I'm much more likely than to do a good job when I'm choosing my foods that I'm going to eat. And if I choose well, then my weight will be more stable. And then I can fast however often that I feel I need to fast for my health. For myself, I've chosen to do 2 extended fasts twice a year. I do one at this point of the year, and in the middle of the year, so June, and then I do one in January or December, depends on when I did this one. And the reason for that is very simple. I want to be healthy, and I feel like this is the best way that I can achieve that, giving my body the time to do the big internal cleanup that it can't do when I'm eating food every day, because I do eat food every day, and I feel like all incoming energy matters. So even anything that I put in my coffee disrupts my body's ability during the day for me to do a proper cleanup, right? Because I have 2 coffees a day. So I want you to, I guess we were going to put this together by saying I want all of us to consider that fasting is a really healthy thing to do to help your body be in its peak form so we can get out there and live the lives we love and play the way we want to play and enjoy our kids, our grandkids, our spouses, our friends with a body that's healthy and strong. I see that 90% of people that are in here have fasted, who've answered the poll. Let me end the poll. But I hope that this maybe encourages the other 10% of you to try it out, see what happens, right? Like, it could be cool to find out that I can do this thing. And I want us to encourage each other, right? That's important. So I do have to get ready, go to work. So I'm going to let you guys go. But this was super fun. I'm glad we had a chance to talk. I'll be live next Monday. I don't know what the topic's going to be, but I will try to let you know how my fast went. So if I forget, ask me about it. So I'll talk to you guys again next week. Have a great day.